Hello and welcome to Motorcycle News, and welcome to something very special indeed, because today we've come along to the Norton HQ in Solihull to meet the new Manx R superbike. So joining me to walk around this absolutely lovely looking bike is Brian Gillen, who is the CTO at Norton Motorcycles. Brian, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us along today.
Welcome to Norton. It's a pleasure to have you here after so much time and years working to design, develop, engineer this bike. It's fantastic to finally be able to share this with you and the world.
Fantastic stuff. And before we get into it, I just wonder if you could just explain to the ladies and gentlemen your role basically within Norton. So what's your what have you been responsible for on the development of this bike?
So my role inside of Norton is CTO, Chief Technology Officer. So inside of Norton, I have all of the engineering, both in Solihull, in our Italian engineering office, and in our Indian engineering office.
Oh, wow, okay.
So we have 3 engineering offices. Inside of those engineering offices, we have powertrain, chassis, electronics, virtual engineering, as well as program management, all sitting underneath the CTO.
Right, so a busy man then.
Very busy. We've got over 78 people here in Solihull. We have over 60 people in Italy, and we have over 62 people in India. So we have quite a big engineering team spread across the globe.
Yeah, and it's a serious organisation and a serious project, isn't it? I think TVS have pumped in over £200 million now to get us to this point.
Correct.
Yeah, and that buys obviously this factory we're stood in now, and obviously the development of this, but we haven't just seen this bike today either. So obviously there's the Manx, the Naked, and on the screen behind you as well, there's an Atlas adventure bike as well. So,
exactly.
And more to come at EICMA too.
More to come at EICMA, and these are all platform projects.
Yeah.
So what you saw today was one version of those platforms, and there'll be varying models inside of that platform of each one of these. So we've got the Manx, which is the Naked version, the Manx R, the full fairing version, and then the Atlas.
I see. And for the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on the Manx R, the superbike. It's the bike we've seen in spy shots. It's the bike we've heard about in umpteen interviews over the past few years. And I think it's the bike that sort of gathered the most sort of internet discussion so far. And I will just point out that we have seen a full production version revealed on stage today. This particular bike is a model though, isn't it? We've just come in here because it's a bit quieter in the factory in here, isn't it?
Exactly. We're in the design studio here right now, and this is one of the design models, which was made actually a few years ago. And it shows how true we stayed to the design model when you saw the production version that was on the stage today.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into the sort of the nuts and bolts of the bike, I spoke to the executive directors around about 6 months ago to discuss the sort of production plan for these machines. And at the time, it was said that the Halo products, the V4s, would arrive and be built in this factory. Now, as I understand it, am I right in saying that the engines are going to be built by TVS in India, and then the rest of the bike will be built and assembled and manufactured in Solihull? Is that correct?
So we're leveraging all of our strengths globally inside of the TVS group. So Norton is part of the TVS group. We have a tremendous amount of supplier development that happens in India and the rest of the world. And we're leveraging each one of those geographic areas to make sure that we're bringing the most expertise to our products globally. So we have a number of engine components and engine subassemblies that are done in India. We have assembly here in Solihull, and complete vehicle assembly, testing, development, all here in Solihull.
Right, I see. So a proper global operation.
Absolutely.
And then there's the involvement now with engines engineering as well, isn't there, in Bologna?
So we have our Center of Excellence. So it's the TVS Center of Excellence, which is based in Bologna, Italy.
Yeah.
And inside of that group, of course, we have vehicle development, testing, and engineering. So we have chassis engineering, aerodynamics, virtual engineering, as well as test facilities.
Right, I see. Well, I want to get into the nuts and bolts now then, and I think the best place to start, especially on a bike like this, is the engine.
Let's dive into it.
Obviously, it's a V4. People who know Norton will be sort of aware and used to V4s, but is this a ground-up redesign? Is this a redevelopment? What's new on the V4?
So I can say what's not new.
Okay.
The oil filter.
Right.
So this is a complete ground-up new design.
Right.
Every component on this engine has been re-engineered and re-industrialized for this specific application.
Of course.
So it's a 72-degree V4 with an 82-millimeter bore, 56.8-millimeter stroke, 1,200 cc displacement.
I see.
And this engine has a phased pulse firing order. So the way that we set up the pulses for the crankshaft is in order to exemplify not only the torque, because we're a torque-driven company, we've had this discussion before, torque is the most important parameter for us that we're using to judge performance. And number 2 is to have the best vehicle dynamics and sound. So by tuning the phasing of the engine, we're also able to tune the sound.
Yeah. So the torque then, what's it packing in there?
So we're over 130 Newton meters of torque.
So does that put you at the top of the pile in terms of superbikes?
So our primary focus with this powertrain in terms of performance was to be the torque leader, absolute in this class.
Yeah.
And we met our target. It's already gone through all the homologation certification tests in terms of power and torque. And I can truly say we're over 200 horsepower and we're over 130 Newton meters of torque.
I see. And do you know where the peak power, peak torque's being made?
You have 75% of peak torque already at 3,800 RPM.
Really? Okay. So, well, plenty for the road then, basically.
Yeah. What we focused on with this bike, with all of our development, with all of the testing that we did, with all of the competitor bikes, with our Norton bikes, is real world driving. So we did over 30,000 kilometers driving around on roads and on tracks in Europe with different levels of test riders that are Italian national champions, as well as normal everyday people that are inside of our company that rode the bikes on the street and on the track. After accumulating all of that data, all of those 30,000 kilometers from road and track, what we saw is the RPM above 9,000 RPM was less than 0.1% in the total 30,000 kilometers.
Right, I see.
From real world riding. So what does that mean? Where people are really using the bikes, and we can do this with big data today. We couldn't do this 5 or 10 years ago. Now we can accumulate all this data. We can study the data. We can see where people are using the bikes and bring performance to the people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The people are riding the bike between 3,000 and 7,000. That's where we want to have all of the torque. We want people to feel the acceleration, feel the emotion.
Of course, of course. And why a V4 again? Because obviously this is a complete separation from what came before. But V4 is obviously something that came before as well. So when you start on a clean slate, obviously there's V-twins, there's inline fours, there's all sorts. So why stick with the V4 motor? So
looking for the layout of the bike. You can't just design an engine to be an engine or a bike to be a bike. To really make something as integrated as this project is, you have to look at everything together. And when we started laying out the bike, what we wanted in terms of dimensions, we wanted to be a leader in terms of compactness. We wanted to have the most compact street bike in this class, in this segment. That means wheelbase, it means width.
Yeah.
So when we look at the width, clearly we can't have an inline engine because it takes the width of our bike out much wider and makes the bike bigger. When we look at different engine configurations, we could have made a triple, right?
Yeah.
Again, trying to find some middle of the road. What we found is that with the sound, with the character, with the torque that we mentioned before, which is really at the top of the line in Nortonness, the V4 engine was the best solution. Then once we settled on V4, then we had to decide what V angle.
Yes.
Right? And when we came down to the V angles, again, we wanted to have a very compact bike, so we settled on the 72-degree V4 with a counterbalance shaft in order to be able to reduce vibrations, while at the same time having the most compact V. With the 72-degree V, it frees up space for the rear shock on the back, right? Because we don't have the rear cylinder bank going back, and also frees up space in the front for the radiator, clearance to the radiator from the cylinder head, and be able to pull the front of the bike in a little bit with the front bank angle.
I see. And that angle then, does that differ from the previous generation V4?
The bank angle is the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And but what isn't the same is quite obviously the frame, which was was a nice sort of tubular design before, and then this is completely different. And I believe shared with the Naked. Is that right?
So the frame is 95% common between the Naked and which is the Manx, and the Manx R, which is the full fairing bike.
Yeah.
And the difference is the steering head angle.
Okay. Yeah.
So the steering head angle is slightly open on the Manx, where the Manx R is a little bit sharper.
I see. And the frame itself, then, what's the material? What's it made out of?
So it's a cast aluminum frame. So it's made up of a number of cast parts that are all welded together. And this frame was designed with a lot of virtual engineering. So what we're looking for with this bike is, one, to tune the chassis to have more flex. Since the scope of this bike was not to go world superbike racing, it gave us a lot more freedom to be able to tune the flexibility of the chassis to improve the ride for, let's say, a discerning customer.
Okay.
Right? We didn't have to go in for the stiffest, most rigid frame to be able to go world superbike racing. It gave us the opportunity to really open up that tuning, look at that in the virtual world, do the validation in the physical world, and get a frame that really transmits the road back to the rider.
I see. And the finished article, obviously, we're going to see more of it at the EICMA show. But when are they hitting dealers? When am I going to see one of these rolling down my local high street?
I think early spring.
Early spring. Wow. Okay. So not long to wait.
Not at all.
Moving on from the frame as well, the bike we saw on stage earlier, that had electronic suspension. And now this one quite clearly doesn't. There's no wires protruding out of it. It'd be interesting just to kind of talk through that electronic option. And you also already alluded to the fact that there's different trim levels.
Yeah, so in the different trim levels of the bike, we have different suspension. That's one of the components that changes. And the top spec bike and also the limited edition bike will have the electronic suspension. Mm-hmm. The electronic suspension is unique. It's the most advanced electronic suspension that there is on the market. Right. And why do I say that? Because the electronic suspension that we have has a linear potentiometer on the rear shock, as well as a potentiometer embedded inside of the front fork.
Okay.
So we know speed, we know position, we know the acceleration of the rear shock in every moment, as well as the front fork. And that allows us to intervene in anti-wheeling, because when we see the rear of the bike squatting, we see the stroke of the front fork coming towards the end of the stroke. We know that we're going to be in a wheelie condition very soon. So that allows us from the suspension to get information back into the bike, feed it into the electronic system, depending on the wheelie control that we have selected, be able to keep the front tire down on the ground or allow the wheelie. So it opens up a lot more options other than just suspension and control into wheel dynamic control.
I see. And I take it then, while we're sticking on electronics, 6-axis IMUs.
Of course.
Yeah. So full lean sensitive suite of electronics then?
With traction control, with wheelie control, with rear lift, with rear wheel slide on corner entry.
Yeah.
All of those with combined braking system is all embedded.
I see. And is that developed in partnership with Bosch?
So our supplier for all the electronic systems, ABS and engine management is Bosch.
Yeah.
But a lot of the calibration and all of the test riding is done by our Norton test riders and our lead test rider, which is Danilo Del Uomo.
Okay.
So Italian test rider, together with our calibration team.
Yes.
Because I mentioned the word Nortonness before, to really have Nortonness embedded into our bikes, we have to have our ideas going through the electronic engine management system and vehicle control system.
Yes, of course. And I can see it up front as well, a full, quite a sizable TFT as well, which I'm guessing then is used to control all of that and possibly a bit more as well.
Yeah, so we have the 8-inch TFT touchscreen.
Yeah. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so you can go in and navigate all of the different options inside of the dashboard with the controls, as well as with touch.
I'm guessing that's glove touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, and inside of that you can select different options, different rider modes, traction control modes, the widgets. So we have a number of different widgets that you can select and customize your dashboard layout to have the information that's most important to you.
So one of the challenges that I was interested in finding out more about is actually homologation, because up until now, Nortons haven't been homologated. So, obviously you have experience from previous manufacturers and things like that, but to come in, redevelop this engine and then actually get it through to become a global vehicle for sales, that must have been very challenging.
It's very challenging.
Yes.
And let me put that into perspective. 10 years ago, World Superbikes were making just over 220 horsepower with complete open exhaust systems, everything full racing. Today, we're bringing products to the road that are completely homologated with over 200 horsepower, meaning you're meeting exhaust emissions, you're meeting noise emissions, which are extremely stringent, evaporative emissions from engine gases coming out of the engine. It's very, very complex, and that complexity isn't just for European homologation certification, but it's about global products today. So it means meeting USA requirements, European requirements, Indian, Japan, Australia, and having a platform that can have all of those technologies built in and embedded into the product to be able to develop the bike to meet the market requirements, the product requirements, and above all, the legislative requirements.
Of course. So is all of that development done, physically through running engines, or, how do you actually jump through all those various hoops to get to where we are now?
The interesting point was with the advent of Norton and the reinvention of Norton as a business allowed us to start off at a different point without pulling in all of the old ways of designing, developing, and industrializing a motorcycle, and allowed us to look at what is a process that allows us to take more of the physical testing into the virtual space earlier in the design and development process in order to go through multiple loops inside of virtual engineering for CFD, for thermal, for power, for noise. We can actually, inside of the virtual world, do all of the noise development to a very high level so that when we start making the first concept prototypes, we can already start initial homologation certification pre-testing to understand where we are against the regulations. So it was an opportunity for us to employ new tools, new methodologies, and bring a product from the concept phase to the production phase meeting all of those requirements in a shorter period of time.
And you know, sticking with machining, if you'll allow me to segue, I just wanted to talk as well. I forgot to mention it earlier. The actual riding position struck me about this bike, because one of the things I thought, even from the early photos, is okay, it's got clip-ons, okay, it's got quite high pegs, but actually, without sitting on it, it looks like it's been designed with a bit more of a, I guess, a road-friendly superbike in mind. You know, the clip-ons are quite flat. They're not, you know, right down here. You know, is that actually something that was considered during that process?
That's not by accident.
Right.
So in the very early part of the project, we also have the possibility inside of the virtual world to do ergonomic studies.
Yeah.
To look at the position of the human being, and not only the human being that's the 95th percentile, but also look at different human beings from different areas of the world that have different builds, different stature, put those on the bikes and try to find ergonomics that aren't just the handlebars, the seat and the foot pegs, but it's actually the contact points between your knees, between the bike, where your heels are touching, looking at how you're moving around at the bike in different positions at different lean angles, and work on an ergonomic setup that allows the rider, one, comfort, and the maximum mobility on the bike.
I see, and sort of taking a step back and looking at the side profile as well. You know, the actual styling is very different, and as you say, it's very narrow in the middle because of that V4 motor. But there are sort of very distinct design choices on this that move it away from Nortons of old. My personal favourite being the sort of Ferrari Testarossa tail light. You know, obviously there's quite straight lines down the sides and things like that. You know, it's different, but I guess you can draw sort of slight similarities with the past as well. So is it kind of I guess when you came to that stage, was it about designing something that was different, but I guess also recognisable for Norton customers, or?
So Norton right now in the design team, Simon Skinner and his team did an incredible job reinventing what is the future of Norton.
Okay.
And the future of Norton is not to have overly complex, cluttered designs. It's try to distill the design down, have the cleanest design on the motorcycle, and give it its own unique identity. In a world where it seems like every two-wheel vehicle is sprouting wings left, right, and center, our focus was try to get the bike as clean as possible and then work on vehicle dynamics from an engineering standpoint, what we can do with the suspension, how we can control the bike to make sure that in all conditions we have the right amount of downforce on the front tire. We're getting the feedback back to the rider, but not by adding appendages all over the bike.
But where's it going to sit in the market? Because obviously it's got that performance that's giving you all that torque at more road-friendly speeds, but it's also still very fast, still very powerful, but it's also got this idea of being a little bit less on your wrists, perhaps. So where are you pitching it in the market?
So in the marketplace today, we're looking for the discerning performance customer.
Right.
Somebody that is spending time on a performance bike on the street. These are hyper bikes, right? We're talking about bikes with over 200 horsepower. That is a very specific segment of the market. And that segment of the market today are not 18-year-old people, right? They're a little bit higher up in age, and we want to be able to cater to them to give them the comfort and the performance and the feedback and emotion of being able to ride these bikes on the street and enjoy it.
I see. And it would be remiss of me to not mention the bikes behind me as well. I know we've focused on this bike, and I can't wait to see it. I heard it earlier. It sounds really, really nice, but obviously the proof is in the pudding when you actually get to ride these things. But, you know, it's not just this, is it? There's the Naked we talked about, but also this Atlas adventure bike behind us as well, which is obviously very, very important because, you know, this is a much smaller capacity bike with, I guess, a bit more of a mass market appeal to it.
Absolutely. And it's, again, we looked at this from an engineering side under Nortonness. So the same ethos, the same philosophy that we address the Hyperbike, we apply to the Atlas. So again, the Atlas is a torque-based powertrain. So it's a powertrain that's developing the max amount of torque that we can get out of that engine displacement, which is one of the highest torque ratings in that displacement category.
I see. So what displacement is that?
585.
Okay, yes.
585 cc. And with a 270-degree crankshaft. And we did that for the sound and for the torque pulsations that we want to be able to deliver to the rider. And the, again, focus is on neutral vehicle dynamics. So the choice of the tire sizes, the choice of the tire width, the wheel diameters, the positioning of the center of gravity, everything is focused on trying to bring back the most neutral chassis possible inside of that category. And we went through numerous loops on design and engineering for the surfaces of the bike to make sure that we have a bike that is comfortable sitting down, standing up, and you can move around very easily on the bike in all conditions.
And it's a 19 front, 17 on the rear. That's the one we've seen today, but I understand there's a cast wheel 17-inch one as well?
17.
Yes, I see. And presumably that's coming to the global market as well.
You'll see that at EICMA.
I'll see it. Fantastic stuff. Brilliant. And then the Naked as well, while we're here, you said already sort of 95% shared chassis. But in terms of performance, obviously, because that's got no fairing on it, are we seeing a different state of tune on that?
No.
Or no, none at all?
We're going for performance and emotion.
Right.
So the same state of tune that we have on the Manx R, we have on the Manx.
Right. And I presume that throttle response, because it's ride-by-wire, isn't it? That's not, in theory, you're not just going to get 130 newton meters of torque, from the get-go. That presumably that's going to sort of meter that out, depending on the riding mode.
Depending on the riding mode that you choose.
I see. Are you able to turn everything off if you should you so wish? Or?
So we have 8 levels of traction control and off. We have wheelie control and off.
Yeah.
Right. Our riders don't want to be limited by electronics.
Yeah.
They want electronics there to help them, but in the certain situations, you want to be without electronics. And if that discerning rider is out there, we tailor to them too. And one important point of that is you find your bike how you left it. So when you tune your bike, whatever setting, rider mode you've taken in, whatever level of traction control you've chosen, whatever level of quick shift and so on and so forth, when you find that setting and you park your bike, whether it's to refuel the fuel tank or whether it's parking in your garage and leaving it for 6 months, when you come back to your bike, you find it exactly how you left it.
So one of the things I've heard from today is about looking towards the future. And, some of the designers have told me that they're already well on with projects for 2030. Forget about this. They've moved on from this a couple of years ago and having to retrain their brain on what made this one tick. So, it feels like TVS perhaps are in it for the long haul.
Absolutely. What you see here today is the culmination of work that we've done over the last few years. But what we've been working on for the last year is already beyond this, going into the expansion of products, going into new products, the update. So there's a lot coming. TVS is, as you can tell, a company that's been around for 110 years. They are a company focused on the future and developing long term. And that same mentality is being applied to Norton. Norton is here for the long haul, and we're already working on the future of Norton.
Fantastic stuff. Well, look, I've absolutely loved this chat, and I've loved seeing the bikes today. It feels like a really important moment, and I'm looking forward to finding out how the public, perceive this, because, for so long people have had a certain idea of what Norton is, and it certainly wasn't adventure bikes, and it certainly wasn't 200 horsepower superbikes. So, I'm really looking forward to November 4th when people get to see it for the first time. So thank you so much for your time. Honestly, it's about 7 p.m. here. We've stayed late to do this, so we're very kind with his time. And please do remember to give us a like and a subscribe while you're here, and let us know in the comments what you think. I would love to read your opinion.